In Jerusalem, archaeologists exhume a burial chamber accepted to be the resting spot of Jesus Christ. The experts reveal a cavity stuffed with dust and debris after cutting through stone. Then at that point, after they gather up hundreds of years of grime, the gathering pries open the tomb. A groundbreaking discovery elicits a joyful reaction from the crowd. Hit that subscribe button and become a part of our community of like-minded individuals who love the History Collective. Let's get started. Representatives from the Roman Catholic, Armenian, and Greek Orthodox churches were among the first to enter, and they were not dissatisfied. These individuals left the site with big grins, according to National Geographic archaeologist Frederick Hebert, who helped with the excavation. Given that Jesus' tomb had not been opened in centuries, it's no big surprise the gathering were glad to be a piece of this tremendous occasion. But what was at stake here? A group of scientists from the National Technical University of Athens designed and carried out the project. As part of an effort to restore the sites at Akil, the chapel-like structure that surrounds the tomb, the excavation took place in October 2016. Obviously, the congregation of the Sacred Mausoleum has an extremely lengthy history that has been harmed, obliterated, and recreated over the course of the hundreds of years too, and keeping in mind that this action has driven researchers to uncertainty the validness of the site. The group has found firm proof that settled the discussion unequivocally. Is this actually the area of Christ's entombment place? The removal unquestionably falls under the domain of scriptural paleontology, a field that plans to find a verifiable reality of occasions expounded on in the Holy Book. When considering Christ's tomb, the accounts themselves can be considered historically reliable because the earliest known copies were written approximately 100 years after his death. For instance, there's as of now no archaeological proof to say that Jesus was killed by the Romans, despite the fact that most Christians acknowledge this as reality. While the Roman utilization of torturous killing is the death penalty is proven and factual in writing. There are only two human skeletons that can be used as hard evidence of the practice. The first was discovered in 1968, and the second in 2018, but neither contained Jesus Christ's relics. Be that as it may, the congregation of the Blessed Catacomb remains close to the site where Christ is said to have been killed. The church is in the Old City of Jerusalem, making it one of the world's most important places for pilgrims to visit. The Dome of the Rock and the Wailing Wall are two of the district's most famous religious structures. It serves as a spiritual hub for Muslims, Jews, and Christians alike. The site of Christ's execution, according to biblical accounts, was Golgotha. After his death, the story goes, Jesus was buried in a nearby tomb. Then 3 days later, he is said to have risen from the dead, visited his apostles, and conferred a sacred duty on them. There was peace and plans were made to build a new church of the Holy Sepulchre. In 1077, despite the fact that the Seljuk Empire took over Jerusalem and began abusing Christian pilgrims. Accordingly, European crusaders set out to the heavenly land fully intent on freeing the congregation where Jesus was covered. The church was then restored and renovated by crusaders to its current form. Midway through the 18th century, the Ottoman administrators of the city used a novel power-sharing strategy to settle disputes between church leaders. Unfortunately, a fire in 1808 destroyed the building. It was rebuilt once more, and an earthquake in 1927 severely damaged it. The stories about Jesus Christ's tomb remain the same throughout. The church is currently run jointly by Armenian Christians, Greek Orthodox Christians, and Roman Catholics. Despite the fact that disputes occasionally arise, an argument between Armenian and Greek Orthodox monks even turned physical in 2008. Additionally, the church's collective decision-making process is frequently extremely sluggish. It's not surprising that Christ's tomb was kept closed for so long. There's a stepping stool close to the congregation entrance that has been the topic of conversation for a really long time. For instance, because it has not moved for more than 2 centuries, it is referred to as the immovable ladder. In addition, debates regarding this and the most recent renovations and repairs actually began in 1959. In 2016, Franciscan monk Athanasius Megara complained to the Daily Mail that the renovation was quite restrained. I personally would have liked to maybe consider some alternative to just restoring the current structure. He said, however, since the status quo is so conservative, we were forced to accept that the current structure would not be altered in any way. Essentially, there have been fruitful unearthings of the congregation in the new past. Numerous groundbreaking discoveries of the site, including several rock tombs, an ancient limestone quarry pit, and what were thought to be walls from Constantine's first church, were made by researchers in the 20th century. However, Christ's tomb remained untouched until our team of archaeologists got to work. Scientific analysis would show that the 2016 excavation was actually the first time the tomb had been opened in several centuries, just as believers held the burial slab inside the tomb when it was last seen light more than 1600 years ago. This is in part due to the fact that in 1555, church officials covered it with marble to stop visitors from stealing pieces of the original rock burial bed. She stated that the architectural conservation we are putting into place is meant to last forever. Later, Hebert praised the amazing discovery of the burial bed. In a 2016 interview with The Independent, he stated that over the centuries, the shrine had been destroyed by fire, earthquakes, and invasions, so we were unsure whether it had been constructed in the same spot each time. However, this appears to be visible evidence that the tomb that Roman Emperor Constantine discovered in the 4th century is the same one that pilgrims worship today. November 2017 was the last month. When the team received laboratory results, they were able to precisely date the tomb. Their tests included utilizing tests of mortar from both the entombment bed and the secret section, a cycle called optically invigorated radiance OSL, then resolved when dregs of quartz gems last saw light. Past endeavors to date the site had demonstrated that it was just 1,000 years of age, notwithstanding the narrative proof connecting the holy place to the Roman timeframe. The tests delivered by More Apollo, however, they show that both the entombment section and its secret cover were last presented to light in the 400 years. Indeed, the outcomes definitively demonstrated that the interment bed was fixed during the rule of head Constantine. Biddle stated to National Geographic that that date is clearly accurate for whatever Constantine did. That is truly amazing. According to National Geographic's Maura Powell, these findings supported some of the historical narratives. The scientists were able to identify evidence of earlier restoration works in the mortar analysis of the southern wall, which yielded dates from the 4th and 16th centuries, for example. She said the team also claimed to have identified parts of the original cave. Maura Powell told National Geographic that one of its limestone walls is now visible through a new window in the reticule. It is interesting how these mortars not only provide evidence for the earliest shrine, but also confirm the historical construction sequence of the reticule. This is the holy rock that has been held in high esteem for centuries, but has only recently been visible. She added the kicker: the discoveries don't demonstrate the Christ was at any point covered in the burial chamber. However, archaeologists like Dan Bahut believe that the evidence is convincing. Addressing the day-to-day mail in 2016, he said, "We may not be sure beyond a shadow of a doubt that the site of the sacred catacomb church is the site of Jesus' entombment. However, there is no other website that can make a claim quite like this one, and there is really no reason for us to question the site's legitimacy." In fact, the case brings to light an ongoing controversy in biblical archaeology. However, a number of ice fields and glaciers have formed over millennia, which explains how these cores can reveal so much about the Earth. Additionally, a record of the climate during that time period is created as each layer of ice is added. For instance, water might contain safeguarded air pockets of air that begin from the period in which it froze. Additionally, these findings can be examined in a laboratory to decipher data like the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere during a specific time period. In this way, ice cores can provide important information about our planet's past climate. But there's more. You see, the cores can also assist us in comprehending events in human history for which there is insufficient evidence. Additionally, they may occasionally be able to demonstrate that biblical fables actually do have some basis in fact. Additionally, as previously stated, those Mount Kilimanjaro ice cores appear to support an Old Testament tale. Let's take a closer look at the specifics of the discovery in a moment. But first, let's learn more about the mountain of Kilimanjaro. Additionally, this tale transports us to a time tens of millions of years prior to the development of humans in Africa. Some may be aware that Kilimanjaro National Park is where you can find Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. Geographers will also tell you that the United Republic of Tanzania, or United Republic of Tanzania, as it is officially known, is on the east coast of Africa and shares borders with 8 other nations, including Kenya and Uganda. Tanzania has an 885-mile coastline and views of the Indian Ocean. In contrast, Kilimanjaro National Park, which covers 652 square miles and is located near Tanzania's northern border with Kenya, is home to the Bantu-speaking Chaga people, who came to the area around the 11th century. Their economy is largely based on agriculture, and their Arabica coffee beans are exported all over the world. The Chaga are surely not the only one in the recreation area. Be that as it may, as the fascination likewise has a wide assortment of untamed life, including elephants and panthers. The tree hyrax, a nocturnal mammal with a bushy coat that is actually a distant relative of the elephant, also lives on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro. Cape buffaloes, western black and white colobus, and blue monkeys have all settled in Kilimanjaro National Park. Mount Kilimanjaro itself is made up of 3 peaks that were all formed by volcanoes that are no longer in use. We got a better look at the mountains of Jaga, one of which had a summit that looked like a beautiful white cloud. At the time, Jaga was a different name for Mount Kilimanjaro. When I inquired about the brilliant whiteness, Bradman's diary entry continued. The guide merely referred to it as cold, and I immediately realized that it could be neither more nor less than snow. I knew right away how to interpret the amazing stories Dr. Krapp, and I had heard at the coast of a huge mountain of gold and silver in the far interior, where evil spirits guarded the way. After the Europeans reached Kilimanjaro, several unsuccessful attempts were made to reach Cabos Peak. In 1889, Hans Meyer and Ludwig Virchow finally reached the Kibo summit, which is on the south side of the mountains. Meyer, a German geographer who wrote that book about Kilimanjaro, had tried twice to reach the summit, but both times he had failed. At 31 years old, nonetheless, he at last prevailed alongside his Austrian mountain dweller sidekick. The two had arrived at the highest point thanks to a painstakingly arranged arrangement of very much provided headquarters. However, it would be nearly another 25 years before any European reached Mainz's summit. In 1912, Germans Fritz Kludd and Edward Eller completed the technically more difficult climb. What's more, obviously, since those achievements were accomplished, individuals from one side of the planet to the other have rushed to Kilimanjaro to travel up its slants. Upwards of 25,000 visit the mountain every year. As a matter of fact, that well north of 19,000 feet, Mount Kilimanjaro is Africa's tallest pinnacle. It's likewise the most noteworthy detached mountain any place on the planet. Moreover, despite being in the tropics and being relatively close to the equator, the landmark's height naturally accounts for its snow cover and glaciers. Indeed, the summit and slopes of Kilimanjaro can experience nighttime temperatures as low as 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Despite this, it is well known that the mountain's glaciers and snow cover have been shrinking. And keeping in mind that this peculiarity happened for a large portion of the 20th years, softening was recorded from 1912 to 1953. For example, ice cover reduction has just gone on at a quicker pace. Since then, scientists have come to believe that the melting of glaciers all over the world is contributing to the melting of Kilimanjaro's ice, and some even predict that the mountain's ice will have completely vanished by 2060. However, despite the fact that melting ice has been linked to climate change, deforestation and other local environmental factors may also be at play. Only found in the Christian Bible, the Islamic Qur'an, and the Jewish Torah after that. The alleged events of Joseph's life are described in Genesis chapters 37 to 50, as some may already be aware, and this account says that the man in question was Jacob's 11th son. Joseph seems to have been his father's favorite because he was born when his father married his second wife, Rachel. The story goes that Jacob then gave Joseph a coat of many colors to show how much he loved him. However, it appears that Joseph's brothers were greatly envious of this gift, which clearly implied favoritism. According to Genesis, the men's animosity toward their young brother was made worse by Joseph's mystical dreams and his claimed ability to interpret them. Then, according to the Bible, the brothers C.S. Joseph were envious, and some of them are said to have wanted to kill him. Instead, he was allegedly sold into slavery to a group of traders whose camel train was headed to Egypt. Additionally, the brothers reportedly smeared goat's blood on Joseph's coat and presented it as proof that he had died in order to conceal their crime from Jacob. According to the story, Joseph began his life as a house slave for Potiphar, a wealthy Egyptian. Tragically, however, Potiphar, his better half Zuleika, obviously fancied Joseph and spread the word. And keeping in mind that Joseph is said to have rebuked those advances, his award for reliability to his lord was to be tossed into jail after Zuleika laid misleading assault charges against him. The Book of Beginning likewise says that Joseph's ability for deciphering the fantasies of others came to the front when he was imprisoned, and that he really performed such an assistance for 2 of his kinder detainees. These men were not your typical criminals. One of them had been the chief baker for the Egyptian pharaoh, and the other had carried the ruler's cup. Joseph translated the cupbearer's dream to mean that he would be reinstated in his previous position. The bread cook, that again, would be executed. In addition, according to the Bible, both prophecies were fulfilled in the end. Click that subscribe button to get notified every time we release a new discovery. You don't want to miss the latest and greatest The History Collective content. Thanks for watching.